Good evening, family. You've tuned in again to another version of The Journey 2020. We start our program tonight on somewhat of a sad note with all that is going on this week. And the sad note I mentioned is the massacre in South Carolina. But before we delve into that, we also have some very happy notes along with that. And one of the happy notes is my co-host, and that is Mr. Charles Morris. Brother Charles.
Happy note. Oh, good, good. Happy note, which I want to share with you. Speaking of happy notes, which I don't know if I should share it because I'm a little embarrassed.
Now, you know that's got to be a real happy note if Brother Charles is
Right. Well, only
Okay.
because I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone.
Uh-huh.
And before we talk about South Carolina for a minute in
Right.
tonight's topic, I had to clean out my father's place. And it took me, I was fighting with it, and I finally had to do it. So he's in a home now. So then I had to go through all of his stuff, my grandmother's stuff, which he had.
Wow.
That was one of the reasons mentally, emotionally, I was fighting, going through it,
Yeah.
Well, when I was a little kid, my grandmother played the piano. When she passed away, my father had the piano in his place. Well, to make a long story short, the piano is now at my place.
Okay.
Now, I'm upset that my grandmother did not make me sit down next to her and learn that piano.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
I would sit next to her. She would give me these little lessons, and I would be. Oh, by the way, I'm Charles Morris. Welcome to Journey 2020. I forgot to introduce.
So Charles got caught up in the happy note,
Right.
but go ahead.
But anyway, I would not play. I was too hyper as a kid, and she didn't force me. You know how parents make kids learn to play instruments. That
Yeah, I was one of the ones that got forced in that way.
I
but
wish she
yeah.
would have made me learn because I'm not musically inclined. I was a jock. I was too busy running and ripping and playing.
I hear you.
So in dedication to her, I started taking piano lesson 3 weeks ago.
All right.
So in her name, I'm going to learn how to play that piano. And I've said that I want to do that all these years.
What?
So now I'm taking the time, and I'm going to take lessons once a week.
Wow.
And I think, you know what, it's been 4 weeks now.
Yeah.
And so I go and I got my little exercises.
Okay.
I'm totally out of my element. And it's funny because he's trying to teach me beats and the rhythm. And I'm going, understand, I'm focusing on my fingers touching the keys.
Right.
We can't talk about rhythm and beats and all this stuff right now. My fingers are touching the keys.
Right.
I'm doing good. So he just laughed. He just thinks that's so funny.
Right.
But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. So you guys pray for me.
That's great.
Keep
That
me
is
encouraged
All
and stay
right.
with this because it's totally out of my element.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm going to try my best to stay with it.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, and I'm going to look forward to a Charles Morris recital somewhere down the road.
See, now you sound like him. And I just laugh at him. And the funniest thing he said to me, which I couldn't stop laughing, he said, do you also want to take voice lessons? And I really started laughing.
Okay. Okay.
So anyway,
That's it.
As you were talking, we were talking about South Carolina.
Yes.
I have a couple of comments that I'd like to make after you make your comments, but also in addition, we invited one of our friends
Yes.
to talk about this time of the year,
Right.
the Black Men's Health Summit. I briefly talked about it last week, but we're going to go into a full force this week to from A to Z.
Right. Okay.
And the information will always be there because I think this is something that will grow because it's a little different this year. So
Yes.
okay, so,
Exactly.
So let's
exactly.
talk about the madness and the
Exactly.
sadness and the craziness that's going on in South Carolina.
Well, I'm wondering if
Oh, yeah. See, yeah.
if you all could hear that, we just had a very close lightning strike.
Right.
And one of the things that I learned after I moved to Florida, that Florida is the lightning capital
of the world.
Really of the world?
Yeah.
I knew of the U.S., but I didn't know of the world.
Of the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the place that I chose to move to, of all places.
But the funny thing is, when you're from Florida, you know some, especially when it's been hot the way that it's been. When we have a lot of warm days, and especially no rain,
right.
It's coming. It's a guarantee.
Okay.
So when you grew up in Florida, that was the only thing that kept us inside as kids when it started lightning.
Okay.
You know how you be trying to force the kids to our parents tried to get us to come inside because it was hot. It didn't work. But once it started lightning, we was inside.
You were inside.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, for some of our audience, I wonder, Charles, if you want to introduce James as so that James can join us in our, because I know as a former policeman that you probably have some thoughts. Not probably, I know you have some thoughts.
Well, the funny thing about, because there's nothing new under the sun, he's not the first and he won't be the last of that mindset and that madness that takes place in the world. When it happened, by the way, this is James Crawford, who has been on the show and been working with James with the Black Men's Health Summit, but also James has been on the show talking about him being a retired police officer through all this madness that's been going on over the last year or so. And if you go on the website, The Journey 2020 that you are on now, and look up past previous episodes, you'll see where James gave us some pretty good insight on just being a police officer. So a lot of times when I do see a lot of the stuff on TV, sometimes I want to pick up the phone and call you just to get, but I guess because I'm so used to James Washington, my mentor, and been around him so much as a cop, and because he basically, you guys have kind of the same spirit, James. He's not. You could be around James Washington and you would never. David Washington. Call it James. David Washington, and you would never ever know that he was a cop. But some cops. The minute they walk in the room, they cops.
I get that. I don't agree with it, but. People tell me that you used to be a cop, right? Or you're in the military, right? I hate that. I don't think I look like a cop.
Well, from my perspective, I say that those people that will pick up that you're a cop, they're picking up something different, because I didn't pick that up either when I first met you.
Good.
Okay. Yeah. But to get back to our topic, and James, you can jump in where you feel comfortable. Many of you are well aware of the incident that happened earlier this week, where a 21-year-old white young man went into an African-American church in Charleston, South Carolina, the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. And after sitting in 1 hour in a Bible study, then brought out his weapons, a gun, and shot and killed 9 individuals who were in the midst of their Bible study. Not only is that by itself horrendous, but to know that this young man went into a church, which we usually think of as a sanctuary, a safe place, and violated that sanctuary by this act of violence, says not only that he was white and they were black, that as we learn about his background, that he espoused some very violent white supremacist views and philosophy that were represented in such things as his feeling that black people were taking over the country, and that somehow that this needed to be stopped. So those of you who have heard the news, this is at this point relatively old news, but the way that it resonates through our country and the reaction both of the white media and also our own African American community is something that I'd like to talk about tonight, because to minimize an event like this would be doing a disservice both to the problem that we have of racism in this country and also to the memory of those individuals who died in this event. There's some more background that I'll share with you, but I'd like to get some thoughts from my co-host and our guest tonight. And if possible, I'd like to see if we could get some individuals calling in who may have some thoughts or who may want to share with us their thoughts on this matter. So, Charles, let me ask you this. I know that at times we've had folks Twitter in and call in. Do we have the capability of doing that tonight?
Well, it's not the call in, because that's a little bit more of a pain. They can, but I do have the text number up where they can text in questions, or, I do have that up. But
okay, that's great.
Right,
that's great.
Because
I think
text
getting some feedback,
Right.
While we're talking, I think would be great. And there may be some questions that our viewing audience has that hasn't been stated. And I like to think, as we say on the Journey 2020, that we keep it real. This is an opportunity for us exploring that.
Okay. Could we shift it a little bit and come back? Because it sounds like we're going to get into it a little in depth. Can we talk about the Men's Health Summit first and then come back to it? Because I think we're going to get a little bit into it. Only because I think we're going to.
Well, let's see what happens.
Okay.
We have a guest, so the guest also ruled. So let's go with the Men's Health Summit and see what where we go from there.
James, just kind of briefly tell us about the Men's Health Summit. Give us a little history on it, then we can go in to talk about how it's a little different this year.
Okay, well, the Men's Health Summit is now in its 19th year. And we started out as the African American Men's Health Summit, and then over the years, we got other black folks to join us, Haitians, Caribbeans, and then we renamed it the Black Men's Health Summit. And it started in 1996 with roughly 250 men attending, and over the last few years, it's been well over 2,000. Actually over 2,500. Normally we have it at the Orange County Convention Center, but this year we're doing something new, and we're calling it an e-summit, electronic. And what actually this could be a fantastic thing, especially for the future.
Right.
Because that means anyone, anywhere in the whole world can come in and tune in on this summit. So if some guy wants his brother to hear something about prostate cancer or whatever we're talking about, he lives here, his brother lives in Cleveland or Chicago, just have him go to the website, he can hear everything. He got a brother over in England, he can do the exact same thing. So it's going to be worldwide. Anybody that has access to a computer, they have access to
the Health
Summit.
Okay.
And basically where it's going to work this year, the e-summit will be this coming Saturday, actually tomorrow, and we're going to have Dr. Abraham Woods, who's a urologist, and Dr. James Robinson, who is a
neurologist.
He's or what's the other word? Oncologist.
Right.
And also Dr. Baker, Robert Baker, who is does colonoscopies. And the theme this year is below the belt. Although men have other issues, this one here is below the belt. We're talking mostly about colorectal cancer and prostate cancer.
Okay.
And getting treated, how to get treated, some of the things that come up, some of the symptoms. And the key thing is the same thing it's been for the last year, is early detection. And tomorrow I'll be talking about that also as a survivor, a prostate cancer survivor. And when people hear cancer, automatically they think death. And I was no different. I was no different. But I've survived a long time, and I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. So when your audience watches the broadcast, they'll hear what I have to say about a survivor and what it's like to be told, okay, you have cancer. And how you deal with it. That's what I'll be dealing with tomorrow. But anyway, we'll have the different websites around the county, and also one in Seminole County where if the men want to, some men that still want to be with other guys to go over this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we have 7 sites around they can go to watch it. They can watch it at their home.
I'm actually going to put up a picture here.
Orange TV.
And it's saying the Central Florida Pharmacy Council go live on the internet. It's the first Black Men's Health Summit webcast tomorrow from 9 to 10 p.m. Participants can log on. I have the site up here, blackmenshealthsummit.com. And it's very, very important. Locally here, they can watch it on cable, Orange TV and Vision TV. But the important thing for those that's not in the area that you can watch, you can still get some very good information.
Absolutely.
And also, I've been working with Angela probably, you said, what, this is 19th year? I've probably been working with her about 16 years out of the 19.
Not 19.
And so James works very hard. They have a lot of volunteers and worked very hard and a lot of effort, and a lot of people put a lot of hard work into this to make it happen. Unfortunately, because there was a mix up in some of the dates, I think this may be a blessing in the long run, because like you said, anybody from anywhere, they call it the Black Men's Health Summit, but it's open to everyone. Everyone is invited to this. Very informative, because there's nothing more important than your health. And you talk about the disparities. That's one of the things that Angela Adams always talk about, is disparities when it comes to Black men and health, and dealing with all the problems we have with prostate cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes. So for those that are not in the area, you still get the information, but those that are in the area, you come out, you get your eyes looked at, you get your ears looked at, you get your throat looked at, you get blood pressure,
dental, HIV, everything. But not only that, also with this webcast, once they see it and see how it works, there may be someone in Cleveland, Chicago, New York may want to do the exact same thing. They want to set up a summit after seeing how ours can work. So that's another thing. You'll see how this works.
Now, one of the things that I learned about the E-Summit is that individuals watching it, that they can then get vouchers.
Yes.
Could you talk about that a little bit, John James?
When they watch the webcast, whether it's at home, whether it's on the computer, whether it's at one of our sites, at the end of the webcast, they will be given a voucher. And they take that voucher, and on July the 18th, they can go for a screening for all of the things that Charles mentioned: diabetes, prostate cancer, colon cancer, body mass. We have a dentist there.
Everything.
Everything is there.
Checked out.
Okay.
You take that voucher, you go to the location of the screening, give it to them, and you get all those tests absolutely. Tests will cost you $500 or $600 or more. You get absolutely free by just simply watching this 1-hour telecast.
Okay.
Wow,
now I want to say something to somebody. Okay. I just got a text asking a question in reference to Charleston.
Oh.
But it came from my cousin.
Oh.
Cuz you have hubby to tune in tomorrow. Okay, it's very important, because I know hubby. He's pretty close to my age. You guys not that far behind me, so have him tune in, and probably some of the church members as well. Very, 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 very important. I just want to get a little shout out to you, Denise.
Okay. Charles, just as you're mentioning churches, that's one of the things that I was always impressed with in participating in the summit, that so many churches have bring out their members to the event.
Yes.
I remember seeing buses coming into the parking lot, with my brothers, and the amazing thing about this is that this would be 7:30 or 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning.
And they would be lined up outside the door. I mean, it's just something you just have to see. It's amazing to see 300 or 400 or 500 black men lined up waiting to get in to get a health check, to get their heart checked. get your blood pressure checked, get your prostate checked. It's just a great
It,
thing to
it,
see.
it really was inspiring
Yeah.
to me in participating.
Right.
Also, I have to put in a plug for one of the screenings, and that is that we will be there doing the mental health screening. And that is one of the unique aspects of the Health Summit. There have been community health fairs, but very few have included mental health. And Dr. Adams thought that it was incumbent, on our community to include mental health as part of that.
Well, if you look at some of the shootings recently, the first thing they said, this person had all kinds of signs of mental illness, and people paid no attention to them. And maybe with this information from the summit, they'll be able to say, okay, so-and-so's doing it, I'm kind of worried about that. And they may do something about it, or call, or make a phone call, and that can make a difference.
Well, one of the things, and you probably can identify with this, because now we're slowly going to Charleston now. One of the things that you probably can identify with, being a police officer in a city like Detroit, but one of the things that David Washington would always say to me was a lot of the situations that he dealt with was having more to do with mental health. But there was nothing in place, because he was like, well, we're taking these people to jail, whether or not it was a drug addiction, which wasn't helping the situation, I got to take them to jail. But a lot of it had to do with mental illness. I'm taking them to jail. They're acting out because they got a drug addiction and they got mental problems. But we're treating them as if though that's not the case. We just got people just breaking the law. So I don't think we really, and I guess I should ask you this question, because
That's all right. You can. Oops. Okay, go ahead.
What would you say overall on how we deal with the issues of mental health, with the problems that we face in this country, not dealing with it?
Well,
I mean, in the sense like, okay, we send them to jail because they got a drug addiction. We send them to jail because they have mental problems, and so they act out and they break the law.
Right.
Dealing with the fact that, I mean, because they have mental illness. Now, this young man, I don't know if he had, I don't know what that was. I don't know what that is. But the first thing I said, I'm gonna
go ahead.
Well, I mean, I hope
Keep
you
on going.
okay. I'm gonna say this, but I would like you to answer the question.
Okay.
One of the first thing I said was, okay, well, you can tell he's 21 years old. You knew he was gonna get caught that day, or sometime. You just knew that. Okay. He had to be in an environment influenced by something or somebody. It wasn't him alone to come up with this thing about raping our women, taking the country, whatever that is.
Exactly.
He just didn't come up with that.
Absolutely.
So there's somebody in his circle that he's been having relations with that has him to think this way, or talk this way, or talk about these things.
Exactly.
So there were two things that I threw out there.
My question to you, Dr. Robinson, is that what is a relationship or correlation between someone, and this has a lot of hate, and mental illness? Is hate a mental illness?
That's a wonderful question. I would answer you and say, yes, it is. And when we think of mental illness, we think in terms of permanent situations or something that is unchangeable. But when you think about, and we can go at this from the mental health or even the scriptural point of view, and that is that as human beings, we survived because as a small, if you want to call it, tribe of individuals in the beginning, we were able to work cooperatively. We worked together, and so that we could fight off, animals or environments that would have been hostile to one of us. So that is a positive aspect of our humanity. But when you think of from Scripture, and I'm skipping from my stance as a psychology professional now to a humble Christian point of view, when you think of of what happened between Cain and Abel, where because of envy, jealousy, etc., from disorganized, disarranged thinking, that a brother would kill another brother. Now, I would pose that question: does that not seem like an illness?
Yeah, to me, but I think we use a wide paintbrush. Anybody that does anything that's just really way out there, they're automatically crazy. And let me just go this, because all the shootings and stuff we've had recently, and a lot of us race related. But just like with this guy here, no one detected, no one picked it up. He acted this out. But there's so many that have the exact same feeling, the same hatred. They don't act it out as far as killing people, but sometimes in their duties, or whether it's a law enforcement officer or whatever, they get a chance to show that hatred, but not necessarily in the same violent way. And we don't see it until someone catches it on camera. Just like they said, how many people have been beat and shot, and the officer lied about the report that we didn't know about because it wasn't on video?
Right. Yeah.
Now, my years as a police officer in Detroit, I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've had officers that beat, kicked, and the report said something altogether different. Now, I don't want to tell war story, but there was a situation where, and it's black and white officers, it's not just all white, where a black officer was kicking a black guy on the ground. I pulled up, I was a lieutenant, I pulled up, I got out, he saw me, he stopped. Standing around right next to him, I mean, literally shoulder to shoulder, were two white officers and a black officer. I got them in the station, I ordered them to make a report. What happened, what they did, and why they were kicking the guy. All four of them said they didn't see the officer kick him. And the officer said he didn't kick him. So what I'm saying, that was their report. But I saw it. So what I'm saying is hundreds, if not thousands of situations like this that we don't see.
Right.
And this anger is coming out in the way they perform. But just like we don't see all these mentally ill people with these hatreds because of we don't track them down or whatever the reason is, that doesn't mean there's not a whole boatload out there just like him.
Absolutely.
And just one last thing. When you see on TV, a lot of times they have the Klan, they have these guys with these hoods, they say, you don't know how many more are out there like us. And I listen to it, and it's true. I mean, they say we're just the tip of the iceberg. So what if you have a guy that felt like this man with the hood and all that, but he's a CEO of a major company? He can't come out and be like this guy here, but he can send this guy out as his representative, so to speak.
Right, exactly.
But that hatred is there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, it's an interesting thing. A number of people will say, and you'll remember when Barack Obama got elected president, that there was a big to-do about how we're in a post-racial society, that somehow that with the election of a black president, now this proves that the country has overcome the stigma of racism.
Absolutely not.
The interesting thing that has happened is since the president has been elected, that we've actually, and I'd ask you all to either confirm or disconfirm this, that we've actually seen an increase, in overt racial animosity and racial incidents.
I think media, social media, video cameras has a lot to do. I don't think it's any much more now than it was then. But the fact is, there are a lot of angry people, white people, because he was elected.
Well, yeah,
and this is coming out.
As a matter of fact, I was going to say, I've been and have heard different people say different things about people who will not even acknowledge that he's their president because he's a black man. Then I also ran into someone at a workplace that where they work, the person who they work for actually has put up a calendar that count down the days when his days are over to say this black man will be out of office. And so it's that kind of stuff as well.
Right.
But wanted to ask you this. I don't know how much you know, we always talk about how we have failed this generation, and that, and however we can phrase that, because there's just so much. But they are in this world. I'm talking about the younger generation now, where they play these games. They do all this stuff when it comes to the shooting. But I'm thinking about the mindset.
Oh, the video.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the mindset that is too. There's so many scenarios to this young man. Oh, by the way, cause I'm gonna get to your question in a minute. So just give me a second here. I'm gonna get to your question. For him to go in, okay, he's sitting down. And he's there. But I think among that, you're 21 years old. Were you in the service? You went in the service, right? Okay, I'm trying to think. In the sense of, you have a gun, I think, that shoots about 14 times. And you reload several times. The idea that I'm going to shoot you, okay, I shot you, but not only did I shoot you, I'm going to reload, and then I'm going to shoot you again and again and again. And then when I'm done, I'm going to look at this other person and say, I'm going to let you live because I need you to tell them what I did.
Right.
He's 21 years old. Think about that. He's 21. How do you get to that place? I can understand if you don't like somebody. I can understand the hatred. But to be so cold and callous at the age of 21.
It even starts before that.
Well, that's my whole point of what I mean by the video games and what they're being
Well, a lot of that too
introduced
has to do with family history.
Right. And that's what I mean.
And family
Like, there's somebody in his circle that he's been involved with, whatever that is, because he's taking it to a whole nother level.
Exactly.
You know, because I mean, I watch the ID channel a lot. Okay, and they deal with a lot of the crimes, and you can always, the majority of the time, you can always tell when it's the type of killing, when they say this is personal. See, there's a difference. Not that it makes any difference, but there is a difference when I rob you and I'm trying to take something from you, and but then when it's personal, it's messy, but it's a whole nother kind of mess.
Right.
You know, it'd be like, whoa. Be like, how many times do you need to kill this person?
Yeah.
Because now it's personal.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to say, and this kind of goes back to James's question, and that is that, yes, looking at this guy at a distance, and they'll go through actually formally evaluating him, and that to me, it's clear that he did have a mental health problem. However, we also need to be clear that there is a mental health. And just, Charles, as you're saying, not everyone with a mental health problem goes out and shoots 9 people in cold blood. So and that's often our fear when we talk about mental health. We think of somebody who is deranged,
right?
You know, who has no judgment. But there's also, and I think we need to separate it from the concept of evil.
Right.
All right.
Which is actually, and I wanted to talk about that, but I need Pastor Jenkins to talk. I mean, I need Pastor Jenkins here to talk about that as well.
Okay, and I think
when you talk about that spirit, because those spirits are real. Okay, so, and I wanted to bring that up, but I would love to talk about that with somebody like Pastor Jenkins.
Well, we should do a follow up, because at times we do get
conversation I was having with you yesterday.
Okay, right. We do get confused, and at times meld, evil, or somehow mix them, with mental illness. When you're talking about evil, just what you described, the young man shooting and then reloading, etc., and then having the consciousness, the plan to then save one person so that they could go out. Again, to me, and I'm not a lawyer, and they'll probably bounce this around in court, but that to me shows a specific intent and also an evil one. You know, again, not just mental illness.
And that's the same thing, the comment he made. What he said to the detectives when they interviewed him, these people were so nice to me, I started not to shoot them, but then I knew I had to. I mean, that says something right there. Like, so he thought about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he changed everything and said, well, I just got to do it.
Yeah,
he did.
exactly, exactly.
Can I?
Yeah, so let's take your cousin's question.
Left with the question, what can I do personally to help Charleston?
Okay. Where is he? Where is
She is in Raleigh.
North Carolina?
Yeah.
One of the things that can be done from my perspective, both as a mental health clinician and as part of the community, is to educate both our young people.
She has 3 kids.
Okay.
3 kids.
Yeah, to educate them, you know, as to what is out here, both in terms of racism, because a lot of our young people, because of some of the cover that has been placed, you know, onto a lot of racism, including institutional racism, and we can get into that, you know, at another point. But educating those people around her as to firstly what racism is, how it plays out, you know, in an individual's life, in family life, and also in community life. That's really important.
Yeah, because
okay?
I wonder, and I ask her this. I wonder what type of conversation parents are having, especially black, you know, because black kids see this, and especially in the church. So it can be extremely confusing. So I wonder what, along with my cousin's name is Denise, and I wonder what type of
hi, Denise.
I wonder what type of conversations parents are having with their children. You know, because I mean, she has a young daughter.
Yeah.
And 2 sons. One is getting ready to go to Georgia Tech, and one is already at Georgia. So, but the younger girl, the daughter, I just wonder what type of conversations that parents are having, or what type of conversation would you have, James?
Well, one of the things, just based on my experience, is you have to have a conversation to let your child know how white people think when it comes to racism. The town I grew up in, we had 100,000 people, and it's probably 65, 70% white. All the schools are white, the teachers are white. My last black teacher was in the 3rd grade. Okay, that's in 1951. Okay, and you learn how they operate, you learn how they think, and over the years, it's helped me make decisions in the police department because I knew, no matter what, a white officer was not going to tell on another white officer, even if he saw him stab somebody. I just happened to look away at the last second, or I dropped my flashlight, I picked it up, and then the guy was laying there dead. So they're not going to do that. Okay? They're not going to snitch on each other. And they're going to back each other up. You have to know that. You have to know basically how they think, how they're going to react to certain situations, so you aren't disappointed. Because kids came home and say, well, this guy did this to me and blah, blah, blah. They're half crying. And that's because of his mindset.
Yeah.
And you have to know what that mindset is.
Exactly. That's so important because I've seen at least 2 kids recently in my clinical practice who were just blown away by the racism that of who they thought were their friends in school exhibited, and not being able to really deal with it.
Yeah. Another question. Are you surprised, or do you Are you surprised, or do you think the family should be as forgiving as they are?
You want me to answer that? Okay, you know why I get my answer.
Okay. Let me say this. I'm
No. I want to hear your answer.
Okay. No.
Go ahead.
I tell you, I'm not surprised.
Okay.
Okay, because in our African American community, as has been a tradition, especially in African American churches, that the concept of forgiveness is one that is central to much of our doctrine. Now, the thing that we shouldn't be dismayed about, because sometimes people think that forgiveness is forgetting,
Right.
okay, or forgiveness is exonerating or excusing the individual. Okay.
No, but I just want to piggyback off what you said,
Okay.
because once you get a certain age, then, and it also has something to do with something spiritual. You learn in life that when you carry that anger, it basically is killing you. When you can't let go and you carry that with you, they're still controlling you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's something that you have to learn to let go of. And it also goes with the mindset of let go and let God, because once you start to understand the things that you can't control, but if I say this, people may not understand what I'm saying. There's nothing new under the sun, because this has happened before.
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's going to happen again. So how do I deal with it, in the sense of, do I let it consume me and it keeps me from living my life? Do I continuously wake up and being angry because now I can't even be me? I can't even be maybe the father I need to be, the son I need to be, the neighbor I need to be, the friend I need to be, because now I'm letting this and of course it hurts.
Absolutely.
It's going to always hurt. But how do I let it affect me to the point that I stop being who I am?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought up that point, because one of the things that, as we think about terrorism, and I look at what this young man did as a form of terrorism. Terrorism is meant to create so much fear, and so much paralysis in who you are trying to paralyze, or that you're trying to terrorize, that they literally stop being themselves, that they stop acting in a productive way, they stop functioning, and so that the reigning kind of a motivator is fear, and the individual acting out of fear. I think one of the things about our community that I think that we underestimate sometimes is our, despite all that has happened to us, is still our not being ruled by fear.
Right, and that was one of the things that at first, because I wasn't surprised by what they said with the forgiveness, and one of the things that I said, and through the history and the time, since the beginning of time, is I see it as interesting how God made us forgiving people. That's our nature. Now some will go, y'all crazy.
Right. Oh yeah, there's some brothers out there saying, "Listen, man, I'm getting strapped down, and they come at me,
And then the funny thing
got
is,
it."
I was having this conversation, and I, on many occasions, but and James, you may understand this too. But if you go to a gun show, and I was telling somebody this today, I said, go to a gun show. The next time there's a gun show in town, because they come here like every 2 months. Pay your $5, go in and just sit back. it will blow your mind. And I'm not even going to tell you how or why.
Right.
But I'm telling you, if you go to a gun show here, you just sit back and you watch what comes in that door and watch what they leave with. Watch what they bring in to trade and to buy, and watch what they leave with. It will blow your mind.
Yeah. I want to mention a couple things
Go ahead, Jay.
about this forgiveness. I'm not that great on that, and I've been criticized soundly for that. And I do know exactly what you're saying is true. If you hold on to something, you're the victim and not, because the person probably did this to you, not even thinking about it. It's a long path because it didn't mean anything to them what they did to you. But because you get past it doesn't mean you necessarily have to say, okay, I accept your apology. I have a thing with apologies about people apologize, especially with these racial things. I'm not a racist and I'm sorry. And as black folks say, okay, all right, I accept your apology. No, excuse me, hell no.
Right.
Okay. You got this guy, first like Imus, got out there called the girls a bunch of nappy-headed hoes. And he went on Al Sharpton's show, the black activist, and said, okay, I'm sorry, everything was clear. Paula Dean admitted calling many of her black employees niggas all the time. She apologized. All of them forgave her. The black guys forgave her. She signed a $75 million contract. Riley Cooper with the Eagles did the same thing. He signed a $15 million contract. I mean, it's just, these folks, they say these things, they say they don't mean them, and we just forgive them. And to me, this forgiveness, I mean, I would not be any other race but black. I've been around almost 73 years. I've been around all kinds of folks. I would not, if I had to start over and say, what race would you want to be? I would say I would want to be black. I wouldn't want to be anything else. But
I'm right there with
sometimes I am so embarrassed as how we let folks manipulate us and use us with peanuts. They can say anything they want to us, apologize, we forget it. I'll go to church and pray, and that's okay. No, I'm sorry. I just don't. I don't believe that. You apologize if you knock over my glass and break my favorite vase. You're late for a meeting. You forgot to pick me up. Those are things you apologize for. You do not apologize for deep-seated hatred that you have that you accidentally let slip out. And I'm not going to accept it.
But James, my answer to you is, for those, fool me once, okay, but you're not going to get me twice, okay? You don't forget. I'm talking about myself. I mean, when you, like, I give you a perfect example. They sit there and they talk about the flag. They talk about the Confederate. To me, the flag waving and I'd rather for the flag to be waving, because at least I know where you are. Because the flag, you taking the flag down, if the flag is still in your heart, I'd rather see the flag waving. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not the flag waving, it's what's in your heart. Because if that's what's in your heart, that flag waving don't mean jack. So if they talk about the flag, it ain't the flag. I get it.
But all it does is the flag identifies who you are.
Right. I'd rather see you with the flag. So when you say what you say, I can look in your eyes. I know if you mean what you say. Okay? Your apology, those are just words.
Absolutely.
Those are just words. So the common sense, especially being a black person anywhere in the world, we get it, most of us.
Okay.
Because we understand, and I always say, and I always will say this, it's how this world and America see us. It's how they see us. That's why things happen, and you say what you say, you do what you do. It's because I am beneath you. And that's how you see me, and that's what I am.
That's right.
Because I am beneath you.
That's right.
And if you don't understand that, then I don't know what to tell a black person.
And a lot of black people, or white people, don't think that they harbor those feelings. When, of course they do. They have convinced themselves they're not racist.
One of the things that I'd ask our viewers tonight, and that is to, if they want to Google or look on the computer, as talking about how white people see things. Just Google white privilege, and you if you don't know what that is, look it up and see what that's about. The thing I really would like to get back to, and that is the question that was asked, is that what can be done?
Right.
Because just to your point, James, often there's a lot of weeping and moaning and oh, how terrible this thing is. And then, and this is one thing that gets me at times about our folks, we'll then go back to business as usual.
Yep.
Okay. One of the things that can be done, and I want to reflect back on the history of this church, because again, I do not think, and some of the media is coming up with the information now, that this particular church was not just randomly chosen.
No.
This church was built in the early 1800s. It was a church that was founded by Morris Brown. Those of us who know Morris Brown College, the college was named after him. One of the things that happened is that the church had grew so much that in its history, that it was thought that church was too powerful. At some point, Morris Brown and several of the people leaders in that congregation, were put to death. Okay.
Wow.
Also, it was the thought to be because Denmark Vesey, and we know who Denmark Vesey was, the leader of a slave rebellion in 1822, was a member of that church. It was thought that because the church was a gathering place, the church was burnt down.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
Ground, yeah.
and disbanded. The members of the church met under disguise or secretly, and were able to continue that ministry. The structure of the church was destroyed 2 other times, and was rebuilt, each time. And in one of the times that it was burnt down, they named the church Emmanuel, AME Church. And those of you who are into the scripture know that Emmanuel means God with us. And that church has a tremendous amount of meaning. In the civil rights era, it was one of the central rallying points for the civil rights efforts in the South, in that area. Martin Luther King spoke at that church, at one point. Many of the leaders of the community were of that church. And the pastor who was slaughtered, Clementa Pinckney, was not only a community leader, he was a state leader,
right.
A state senator.
Right, senator.
And if you want to get an idea of just what a remarkable character he was, just look at any of the news clips that they're now playing. So that church had a central purpose in the community. So I don't think that this young man just happened to pick this particular church. So we need to, as our I want to say caller or one of our audience members said, well, what can be done? We need to know that history. We also need to know the history of the resilience of that church and that community, where something like that, 9 were killed this time. Back over 100 and some odd years, almost 200 years ago, 35 were killed, simply because they wanted to worship, as a community, simply because they wanted equality for themselves, simply because they wanted to be looked at as not less than, not more than, but to be looked at as equal.
Equal.
And that's the simple desire that all, well, I can't say all of us, that many black people have had over years.
But it just amazes the idea that sometimes just drives me crazy, because the older I get, the harder it is. I mean, I get being how one can see themselves. I get the ego, the super ego, but it's kind of like, remember Dale was talking about, I think there was a book, and I want to ask you about it, but she was saying about how it has to be a sickness to think that you are better than somebody to that degree, that you do what you do, that it has to be an illness, that you would see me that way, that you sick.
Right.
and she was saying a white person wrote that.
Right, okay, yeah.
Remember that?
Okay, yes,
right.
yes.
And the idea that you put on this earth, that God would say, this, I'm going to create you, but I'm going to create these little peasants over here, and they are put here to serve you. The idea that you wake up with that and see that way is just mind-boggling to me. You know, I can see when you're young and stupid, but you're old and you stupid. You know, just to be so arrogant is just mind-boggling, you know, to me.
Well, you know, and in many ways we can think of it. Sometimes it's difficult for us to think in terms of a mental health concept, but we know that when a virus infects you, okay, that virus can spread all through the body, and in spreading through the body, it doesn't just remain in the toe or in the finger or in the ear or in the nose. It affects the entire body. So that virus that I would call racism in our society, just a virus like that, and as it infects part of the body, it affects the whole body. So, again, in terms of what can be done, firstly, educating about our own history, not that we are just sprung up as hip hop artists, or that all of a sudden that we've got Jay-Z and these celebrities and whatnot, that there have been individuals in the black community fighting for the sense of respect, dignity, and equality, from almost the beginning of we landed on these shores. The other thing is that very concretely, letting the either through social media, etc., and this is an easy small thing to do, is to, again, to let the members of that church, and you can find their email, their Twitter or whatnot, let them know that there's support for them outside of the community. The third thing that can be done, and these are larger social issues, but I think that they can make the most difference, and that is we need to support legislation that controls the access to guns, to weapons. The president and many people have talked about that. The NRA has basically paralyzed a lot of the political system in maintaining that. And the other thing that we can do is that we can also advocate for quality treatment, for funding for mental health care. It's been a well-known fact that 1 out of 10 individuals, and this gets back to your point, James, 1 out of 10 individuals at some point in life is going to encounter serious psychological problems. If you think about, and that doesn't mean that we're crazy, okay? Even though I own my own craziness, okay? But it means that at some point, each one of us, and you can think back to younger days, other days, or perhaps even now, where there are stresses where that your thinking isn't what it should be, that you under so much stress, and often as African American individuals, as black folks, we tend to think that if we simply pray on it, and prayer is very important, okay, But if we pray on it, then that's all we need to do. Just as when our plumbing is out of kilter, okay, we don't just pray that the plumbing gets fixed. What do? We call a plumber, okay? So when our car needs, we go, and seek a mechanic. We take more care of our cars than we give to our God-given bodies, and our God-given minds.
Right.
So I would say it's
get a true oil change.
there you go. There you go. There you go. Change some of that mental oil, so you may have a little sludge up in there. All right.
Yeah.
But we need to, and that's why, coming back to the summit, I was so glad when Dr. Adams said, let us include a mental health screening in there. Yeah. And I look at it and say, we have our physical annual check, so why don't we have a mental annual check? Okay? So I just wanted to put that in there. But again, what we can do, we can let that community of South Carolina, of Charleston, know that black folks outside care. We know that the campaign about Black Lives Matter, we need to let the folks in Charleston know that Black Lives Matter.
Okay, we're going to do a real fast recap because we're actually out of time. So real quick, James, give us the information again on where the people can go for the summit, because it's very important, especially Denise, again, get hubby to watch tomorrow, starting from 9 to 10. You go to
www.blackmenshealthsummit.com.
Okay, and that is from 9 to 10.
From 9 to 10. Tomorrow morning, Saturday, the 20th of June.
And between 9 and 10, they're doing what? What's going on between 9 and 10?
They're going to have the doctors, Robinson, Dr. Woods, and Dr. Baker talk about below the belt problems.
Right.
Colorectal cancer and prostate cancer.
Okay.
And they'll give you all kinds of good information, what to do, where to go. And the key to the whole thing they're going to talk to you about, the same would save my life, is early detection. Okay. You have to go and get it checked out. With prostate cancer, I'm asked the question all the time, well, what are the signs, what are the symptoms? There are none. There are zero symptoms.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Denise, get a hold of your friends, some friends. Get the word out, because they can. It's very, very important. They've been doing this for 19 years. It's very informative. I've been a part of it maybe 16, 17 years. So I'm just saying, getting the word out is very important. Absolutely. Now, next week, in addition to what we're talking about now, remember, this actually falls into the line because we didn't come up with what is it that I said that we want to talk about? The North?
No. Go ahead. No. I'm fascinated listening to you. Go ahead.
No. Remember, because this falls into the line of I'm trying to pronounce it right. The narcissism.
Oh, narcissism.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is what I would love, because this will be like a part 2, because this follows up right into what I wanted to talk about, because I was telling you about running into these situations and these relationships that when I run into these girls and these women, whoa. It was like that. Boom.
Right.
we started and finished with a bang. Dude.
Yeah. It's like, but now that I'm older, I better understand, because I understand that personality. And so I can, not that I can, but I kind of recognize it right away, even though sometimes it's stronger than others.
Right.
But you see it among people. Now, and it's just interesting, because it's funny to me to think that the world evolves around you. Because that's how they act.
Yeah.
And I guess that young man, that would be part of his personality too as well. Would you say that?
Well, I'd have to say that there is some narcissism, but that's not the primary driver. Okay. But since I know that we're already over time, I think you've given a good teaser for our broadcast next week.
Okay.
and we will have a in-depth discussion about narcissism and how it affects them. All right.
Okay.
So, audience, we barely touched on. I know we had some folks who had Twittered in.
Right.
Pardon us for not being able to answer your questions, but if you do have some questions that you know that you want to have answered, Charles, what's the best way that we can do that off broadcast?
Well, they still can. They can still text in. Text in
Okay.
The text number.
So text in and tune in next week. And as we like to say here at the Journey 2020, the journey is from me to you and from you to me, so we can reach a higher level. Good night. See you next week.